Okay, so now we're going to be discussing about nodes and loops. So first, a node in its simplest definition is a connecting pointer line. Connecting point or line. Whereas a loop is any path, any pathway that returns to its original location. Now, for nodes, there's three types of nodes. We have simple, we have essential, and we have super nodes. Now, simple nodes could be just anything that connects two elements back to back. So we had a box like this, and then another box like this. This would be considered a simple node. An essential node is anything that connects three or more elements together. Something like this. This would be considered an essential node. Now, we then have the concept of a supernode. So the idea of a supernode actually comes from using it as a mathematical object to bypass certain parts. So suppose that doing analysis with this was a little complicated, and maybe it had some miscellaneous parts over here. We might want to use a supernode and completely bypass this and kind of look at it in terms of just these two elements, because maybe perhaps the mathematics is a little easier to do. Now, what about a loop? So for loops, there's just only two kinds of loops. So we have a simple loop and a super loop. Now, I won't go over the details of super loops, but the idea is they are very similar to supernodes, where we want to use them as a mathematical object to bypass certain parts in the event we want to for doing circuit analysis. Simple loops are a little easier to do. Now, the idea of a simple loop is it touches one element, or it touches or touches however many elements it needs without skipping through any of them. So the idea, for example, is suppose you have a battery source, and then maybe you have a resistor over here, a resistor over here, and then perhaps you have another resistor over here. Something like this. This would be considered a simple loop. Now, perhaps down the line, you might come across some other unknown network of the circuit, and this network just happened to contain stuff that was kind of ugly, but you need another equation. From there, you would probably then use a super loop. But first, so you have two simple loops here, and then maybe perhaps a third equation would involve using a super loop like this, which would bypass one, in this case, would bypass one element. So, in summary, a node is any connecting point or line, whereas a loop is any kind of pathway that returns to its original location. There are three types of nodes, and there are two types of loops. Thank you.